All right, welcome everyone. Hey everyone, good to see you, old friends, new friends, everybody in between. Great to be here with you. So excited you can join us for this one. This is I'm very excited about this one. So let's just dive into it. You are here because these are admin insights, our 30-minute power sessions, and this one is on something near and dear to my heart called sense making. So what do we actually mean by this word sense making? So today's going to be a quick introduction, but you are going to leave with some tools that you can share with colleagues and teachers. So quick little thing, come on in. I'd love to see who you are, where you're from. Say hello, what district are you in, or what organization are you with? So let's just build a little community and say hello in the chat. Mesa's here, welcome. Fabulous. Humboldt, yes. Littleton, Marana, nice. Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, Gila Bend, awesome. So fun to see where you're from. Thank you so much. All right. Cool. And so I'm just going to gently push us along. If you're still saying hi in the chat, just keep doing it. I'm just going to gently push us forward. I am Rebecca Gorelli. I am ASTA's Professional Learning Specialist and PL Team Leader. Normally, Sarah Torres, our amazing Executive Director that produces all these amazing programs, is not here today. She's actually out doing something else. But I have a friend, Diane Ryan, who is here, part of our team to support me in the chat. So if you need anything, you're missing a resource or that kind of thing, find Diane Ryan in the chat, and that's going to be our support person for today. So welcome. You are here for our May event. A reminder that we're going to do these once a month, 30 minutes. So keep an eye out. Next time in June, we're going to talk about how to support teachers for the new school year that will be up and coming. So I will be quiet for a moment. I'm going to invite you to read our goals for this tiny bit of time we have today. Here is what we're up to. So we're going to start with the basics of where is sense making in the Arizona Science Standards and what does that actually mean? What kind of key shifts in instruction align with sense making? And then I'm going to share a really awesome tool with you that's going to help you ask yourself reflective questions and teachers to ask themselves, are my lessons incorporating sense making? So we're going to look at a tool later that can help you kind of evaluate lessons for sense making. So here we go. What you need today is every time we build these, we provide a very useful resource collection. I'm going to put it in the chat. You're going to need to keep this open. So give me a thumbs up when you've got it. You're ready to go. You've opened it, and I'll see you populating in here. Perfect. Okay. So each event, we build these resource collections. I will be linking the slides right here once we're finished. And once I get the recording in here, it will be linked here, but it will have an expiration date of 30 days. So if you want to keep it, just download it. Now, the rest of these resources, I will be strategically calling out along the way, like let's open resource 2, resource 3, etc. So follow my lead, just keep this open and it will make sense. So here we go. We're going to start with an introduction to the shifts and sense making. So a little bit of background on our science standards. Our standards were developed using 2 key research documents. The Framework for K-12 Science Education, which is what NGSS also used. And this is where we got 2 out of our 3 dimensions, like a lot of our stuff around them came from this book. So the SEPs, the Science and Engineering Practices, and the cross-cutting concepts. However, we are not an NGSS state because we didn't adopt NGSS, but also we incorporated this research document called Working with Big Ideas of Science Education. And here is where we got a lot of the core ideas, which is the content pieces. So very important we understand the background. Now, where does sense making fall in? Sense making definitely came from the framework. So we're going to talk about this next. And so if you were to read this contemporary piece of research that really culminating research on how people learn science in the classroom from 30 years of research and on. This came out in 2012. It talks about 5 key instructional shifts. So let's talk about shift 1. Shift 1 means students are going to be positioned as scientists and engineers to explain phenomena or observable events in the world around them and use science ideas to explain them, or they're going to define problems that they solve through engineering design processes. That's shift 1. So that means we're no longer lecturing all day. We're putting the kids in the position of the scientist and the engineer to actually figure things out, not just memorize vocabulary. Shift 2, actively doing science through the 3 dimensions, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. Active participation through verbs of our standards called the practices, tying in the content and the cross-cutting concepts. Shift 3, coherent learning progressions over time, meaning things they learn in K2 build to 3-5, which build to 6-8, which build to 9-12, and build a coherent learning progression from the student's perspective so they can leverage what they had already had a foundation on to build more sophisticated knowledge going forward. So let's just take a quick look at what we mean by 3 dimensions. Here they are: blue, orange, green. When we say 3 dimensions, we're talking about these 3 colors, these 3 things that are embedded in every single one of our standards. Blue is the verb through which the students perform, the active part, things like asking questions, planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing, interpreting data. The green, cross-cutting concepts, are thinking tools, lenses through which we think, patterns, cause and effect, system and system models. They are also cross-disciplinary. We can use them in science, we can apply them in math and ELA and social studies. And finally, the 3rd dimension, the core ideas, is really what science used to be about, and that's the content, the core concepts we use to explain the world around us. So here's a quick look at what we mean. None of these are done in isolation. They are always braided together and integrated in a 3-dimensional way. Let's keep going. Shift 4. Standards. So our Arizona science standards, I'm going to try to have your minds not use the word standard anymore, but I'm going to open your mind to trying to think of the standards as student performance expectations. How are the students meant to perform? How will they provide evidence of their learning through performance tasks? And we're not talking about curriculum here. Our standards are performances the students demonstrate to show proficiency of the standard. And 5, sense making, deeper conceptual understanding of content, not just memorizing vocabulary facts and listening to lecture and taking notes. We're talking about deep understanding and then applying it to multiple situations to show what we know. And that's what we mean by sense making. And so if you are thinking like, wow, I might not have ever heard that the standards are student performances, I wanted to bring this slide forward to show you what I mean by that. Here's a 4th grade standard I pulled. So we're going to look at it. Here's what it looks like if I pulled out the standards. But notice I embedded the colors: collect, analyze, interpret data. That's the blue verb through which the student performs, which is the practice, the active part. The orange part is the content or core ideas. This has to do with E1, which is one of our core ideas, and the lens of patterns. So our performances mean the students at the end of instruction should be able to perform this standard using this blue practice, orange content, and green cross-cutting concept or thinking tool. And so now that I've talked quite a bit, I'm going to introduce you to the very first page of our standards that most people completely skip, but we're going to read it today. So we're going to use our first resource now. And actually, it should be number 3. Sorry, it's not number 2. Let's open number 3. I switched things around last minute. I apologize. So number 3 looks like this. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know you got number 3 open. You can use an emoji. Thanks to those with cameras on. Perfect. All right, so I'll give you 45 seconds to read the very first page of our standards, which talks about 2 key shifts: phenomenon and sense making. So go ahead and read this. I'll give you 45 seconds on the clock. We are in not resource 2, that was a mistake, it's resource 3. I'll put on a little more time. All right, hopefully that was enough time. The reason I had you read this is because it is the introduction of our standard, which is calling out 2 very key shifts. Now, we're not here to talk about phenomena too much today, but we do have professional learning. If your teachers need a little bit more understanding on phenomena, we are going to be talking about sense making. So that was just a quick introduction to sense making. So I love this quote. This is actually resource number 2. We're not going to go open it, but I wanted you to know where I got this quote from. So I'm going to invite you to read one of the major shifts in instruction in science education. I'll be quiet. I invite you to read the quote. And so a key takeaway here is the older Arizona science standards were really about memorizing vocabulary and some skills and processes. This idea of recall, reciting, proving theories that have already been proven is no longer what we are doing in science classrooms. So the shift is really from learning about science and terms and vocabulary to actually figuring out why things are the way they are in the world. How does the world actually work? So keep that idea in your mind. We're going to watch about 4.5 minutes of this awesome video that I did link for you in number 4 if you want to use it in the future. This is from Bozeman Science. This is Paul Anderson. He's a national education leader in science, and he's going to help us see the shift in instruction that you just read about. So sit back, relax.
Hi, it's Paul Anderson, and in this video I'm going to talk about scientific phenomena and sense making. It's basically what students are trying to figure out in class and how they're doing it. Remember, this video is in a set of larger videos on scientific inquiry. It's essentially the 5 steps of scientific inquiry, and coming up with the right phenomena is that first step. Whenever I work with teachers on phenomena, it's important to define the word to begin with. Remember, phenomena is plural, but it essentially means any observable event in the natural world. So that could be a scientific demonstration, it could be a case study, it could be a data set, it could be watching plants and animals grow, it could be as beautiful as a double rainbow or as ugly as a concussion in humans. This is what students are figuring out in class, and this is how they're building their understanding of science. Now, you might say as a science teacher, well, I already do all of those things. And I think I did as well when I was teaching science, but we probably do it out of order. If you think about a typical unit, we usually start with explanation and then we go to exploration. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm teaching biology and I'm teaching a unit on cell division. I might have my students read first. There could then be lecture, maybe a video. I use a worksheet. Maybe I show them how to use a microscope and we look at cells that are going through division. All of this is me explaining the science at the beginning. And at the end, there might be a lab. Maybe there's an exploration phase where they look at onion root mitosis and they look at how many cells are in each different phase and come up with a graph of that. And so the exploration is left to the end. And so if we look at this unit, there's really good phenomena in here. There's going to be the phenomena of the onion roots, and every kid loves looking at cells, and especially looking at cells as they start to divide. And so the idea of using phenomena and sense making is that we shift the exploration to the beginning. We start with those really interesting phenomena and we put that student at the center of trying to understand how they work. Now, scientific inquiry is the way that students go through this process of sense making, trying to understand what's going on with that cells, how they divide, and how they change over time. Now, we're also going to have all these other parts of good teaching. We're going to have lecture, we're going to have reading, and at the end, you have to stand up there as a teacher and really kind of pull together all of the knowledge, but that understanding should come from the students themselves. And so when you're starting to plan units, those days of just opening up the book and let's start with chapter 3, or looking at the standards and saying, like, what do I have to teach? Oh, I know how to teach that. And I, as teacher guiding it, are probably gone. We're moving towards this new area of what's called storylining, where we put phenomena at the center of a storyline. What's a storyline? It's just like a good book. It has a start, it has a finish, and then there has to be some conflict that runs throughout that whole book that kind of is driving your interest. And that's what those phenomena are going to be. That one phenomena that drives that whole storyline is now referred to as an anchoring phenomena. It's the one thing that students are going to be building knowledge on each day and contributing to a better understanding. Now, we're going to have other phenomena in the unit itself. We're going to have what are called supporting phenomena. Sometimes we call those investigating phenomena. Some of those phenomena will probably come from students' own investigations. And that's how we build that understanding. So let's say I'm teaching this unit on cell division. Maybe we start with this overarching anchoring phenomena of the glowfish. Kids are always interested in that. It's a genetically modified fish that glows. Maybe the unit is called How Did the Glowfish Get Its Glow? And every day we're going to build a better understanding of that. I'm pretty sure these fish are patented, but you can grow zebrafish just regularly in the class, and so the kids could actually be doing scientific investigations on those embryos. Now, we'd also use other supporting phenomena, the one things that we've always used in a good unit on cell division. And as students move through this, they're using those science and engineering practices to make sense or build knowledge of that, and thereby starting to understand like the science that we want them to understand. Now, this is just an example. Let me give you some real examples. I was working.
All right, so we're not going to watch the whole thing. He does go into another example and then he talks about phenomena for a few minutes. So if you'd like to see the rest of the video, it is in the resource collection number 4. But what I love about the video is how he helps folks understand that we do explore before explain. In the younger grades, we call this activity before concept. So instead of coming out front loading vocabulary, pre-teaching vocabulary, we're going to layer in vocabulary after an experience to help the students live that experience, understand that experience, and then layer in the academic language that is correlated to that experience. So it is kind of flipping instruction the way traditional science used to be taught. And so to just kind of summarize, like, what is this thing we call sense making? I'd like to invite you to read the definition from the National Science Teaching Association sense making website, which I did include in resource 5 should you want to go on a journey on that website. But just to summarize what Paul Anderson just said, I'm going to invite you to read and just synthesize, what do we mean by sense making? And so what's amazing about sense making is this idea of co-constructing knowledge with peers. Your idea is going to help my idea, and collectively we're going to move our science thinking forward as a whole class on a mission to figure out how the world works. So let's talk about the shifts in instruction a little more. NSTA has this fabulous guide called a Reader's Guide to the Framework for K-12 Science Education, which is what our standards were built from. So I'd like to introduce you to what they call a continuum for instruction. And so on the left-hand side here, I have the kind of traditional style instruction that we probably all went through as children learning science. It's called the information frame. And so it has some key components that I'm going to bring to light, and then we're going to look at how to shift those to the sense-making frame of instruction. So first, in the information frame, the teacher is focused on disseminating information, right? I'm in the position of the expert. I'm going to give you the information. Students are then positioned as kind of those, it's that idea of those empty vessels where we just fill their head with knowledge, where they just recall facts, recite, and memorize ideas that the teacher has given them. Science in this traditional style is portrayed as a just kind of memorizing vocabulary terms. So portrayed as a body of established facts, like these are the facts, you need to learn them. And assessments in traditional style are really those focused on right answers instead of reasoning and evidence. So multiple choice style, fill in the blank, that kind of thing. And on the sense making side, whereas we want teachers to kind of progress towards with our standards, is instead of just being positioned as the expert giving out information, we're focused on helping students develop a deeper understanding of content so they can apply it to multiple situations. Students, instead of memorizing facts, are having a drive, a mission of curiosity that's focused on understanding something in their world that's relevant to their lives. Science now becomes a way, an avenue, a tool to make sense of the world around us, not just this body of facts that we have to memorize. And assessments are going to look a lot different in sense making. It's going to ask the kids to perform, provide evidence and reasoning to support their ideas and conclusions. And so, with our standards, we're trying to help teachers move away from the information frame and towards the sense making frame. So this is about progress. And so again, I'm just going to highlight that science should look different when you walk into a classroom. The days of the sage on the stage are hopefully going to be moving away from that and moving towards the guide on the side where the students do the heavy lifting and the teacher becomes facilitator rather than the expert giving out knowledge. And so you might be wondering, well, like, okay, great. What does this actually look like in a lesson? If I walk into a classroom, what are the things I should be seeing? So we're going to look at two tools. One is this quick graphic from the Smithsonian that I love. It is number 7 if you want to like read the whole article later, but I just grabbed this graphic. So a reminder that science is not a linear process. It doesn't go from, I do this, we do it together, we memorize things. It is going to be iterative and cyclical. So we drive instruction using a phenomena, observable event, or a problem in the real world. Like, why are all the oysters dying? Then that promotes curiosity. We can leverage uncertainty, activate prior knowledge, generate their initial ideas of what they think is going on. Then we ask students to make their thinking visible on paper and bring it publicly available and co-construct knowledge with their peers. They talk about ideas, share, connect, relate, etc. Then we do a lot of investigations, ways of gathering through investigations, text, media, all of that stuff. Then we revise our initial ideas that we came up with as new evidence comes to light. And we might go through this a couple times. And then we come to our final explanation of this driving phenomenon or problem. And so, to help you understand, like, what do lessons really look like that incorporate sense making, our last few minutes here are going to be quick, and I'm going to introduce you to the 4 attributes of sense making from the National Science Teachers Association, and then leave you with a tool that you can use to evaluate lessons. So here are the 4 key attributes. Go ahead and look at this graphic. We've got learners making sense of phenomena. We've got learners engaging with those science and engineering practices. Learners co-constructing knowledge with peers, building student ideas, and integrating those core ideas, those concepts. Everything in sense making will rely on classroom discourse and integrating those cross-cutting concepts. And so, phenomena, I think we've talked about a lot. It's got to be relevant, engaging, puzzling, leveraging uncertainty, and boosting curiosity. So it's going to be based in student talk, sense making, and writing explanations. Student ideas means how do we get kids to talk with each other and build knowledge together? So discourse strategies are going to come in here and different talk formats like consensus discussions versus building understanding discussions. Practices, those verbs through which they perform, asking questions, developing models, analyzing, interpreting data, designing solutions, arguing from evidence. Those are those active verbs through which they perform. And finally, the science ideas. Those are the core ideas we use to explain that they're going to draw, write, model, communicate, listen, speak, all of that to help them explain the anchor phenomenon. So, how can we look at lessons or look at what goes on in classrooms and know if sense making is happening? So, I'm going to introduce you to this tool that's going to help teachers move from that information frame to the sense making frame. Let's go get the tool. It's number 8 in here. And I know I've only got a few minutes, but that's all right. So number 8 looks like this. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know you've got it. I am going to give you 2 minutes to read it on your own. So just want to call out a couple things. The 4 components I just showed you are color coded in here. So it's clearly defined and called out. There's also this great continuum. Less like this, more like this. Now, this is a single point rubric, which means the middle column is our target. This is our goal for sense-making tasks, sense-making lessons. So when we look at lessons, we either write where things are not partially met in this middle criteria or evidence where it is met. But the middle is our target for good sense-making lessons. I will be quiet. I'll give you 2 minutes to read the tool and then share any noticings in the chat once you're done. And if you're done, if you feel like sharing any noticings or wonderings, feel free in the chat, but no pressure. Okay. So now that I've introduced you to the sense-making tool that can help evaluate lessons, yes, thanks for the comment. Awesome. I agree with you. I wanted to call out one thing you probably read, and maybe you were wondering, and maybe you missed this. When we hear this word elements, you may or may not know what that means. So before you leave, I just wanted you to know that we have elements for all 3 of our dimensions. And what is an element? It's a specific piece of knowledge or skill that makes up each of those 3 dimensions. So these are on the Arizona Department of Education's website. They're sort of like learning targets or learning objectives. So for each of the 3 dimensions, we have these bullet points that describe at K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, what does this look like at this grade level? If you have not seen these before, I did include them right here, number 9 for you, and they do exist for all 3 dimensions. So elements needs to be used with the sense-making tool because they go together. And so we are out of time. I am on the dot. Next time, I'll see you in June if you want to come We'll talk about how to prepare science teachers and support them for the new school year. And I do have a survey if you would like us to build out certain sessions on certain topics. This is how you let us know. So I want to say thank you for your time. I will add the slides and the recording to the top right here later today. So keep this here. Thank you for being here. I will stop the recording and can stay on for any questions should you have some.